Hi there, my name is Renee Hobbs and welcome to tonight's class. I see Olivia. Olivia, you were a rock star on the readings this week. Loved your participation. Pam and myself, it's Tuesday, April 9th, and I see also Jessica. Jessica Ouellette is also joining us. Hi, Jess. So I think we're going to have a good conversation tonight, even if we're just a small group, or maybe some people will be joining us in a little few minutes, or maybe you'll be watching this as a recording, so that's really cool. We have a bunch of things to talk about tonight, and of course, Pam and I started almost as soon as the Zoom started with the question about why do so many people watch live terrorism feeds? That's the question we wondered when we read the mosque shooting article. We saw that 200 people watched it live as the gunman was, marching into the mosque and killing 17 or 47 people in New Zealand.
That's presumably because he let people know he was going.
I guess, again, he's part of some kind of online community.
Yeah.
Right? Where
I'm live streaming, I'm going in, something like that.
So, but within 24 hours, Facebook took down 300,000 copies of that video and blocked 1.2 million streams that were trying to be shared and reshared and reshared again. So I guess our first question is, what makes it appealing to watch live stream terrorism? And the answer is, we don't know. But maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Is this like an open-ended thing? All right.
Your turn. Why? Why do people watch that stuff?
I feel like a lot of people like in the case of the New Zealand terrorist thing, I feel like, at least my opinion and how I perceive it to happen is, a lot of people, when they watched it and shared it, I feel like they didn't actually grasp that this was a real thing. And with movies and TV and stuff like this is recreated so often, and it's normalized to see such violence. And I feel like a lot of people shared it not realizing that it was actual lives being taken, not fake stuff. And a lot of people when they share stuff on social media, they just share it right away and don't think of the consequences. And it's so easy to perceive something as just something you see on the internet and not something that's actually happening in real life.
Lots of great ideas to kick us off with. Thank you so much for 5 reasons that make sense. Jess, what's your perspective on this question? Why do so many people watch and share that mosque shooting video?
I don't know. I think I have to agree with Olivia that I don't think that they understand the repercussions that are going to happen. And as soon as they see it, they just want to share it, and they don't understand that it's a real thing and people are dying. This isn't a joke. This is real life, and it's really happening.
And did you read in the article about how there was a woman facing charges because after the event on social media, she said something that was anti-Islam, and she's now can be charged $5,000 for what she said?
Yeah.
That's totally different than in the US. That's totally different. I know people.
No, go ahead.
I know people who are go to URI and face that type of discrimination on a daily basis. I'm friends with people who are in MSA, and that's just such a people are so, like, they hear, like, discriminatory things like that all the time, and, like, there's no consequences for it. But, like, at the same time, like, we as Americans, like, value our freedom of speech so much that, like, do you think anything would ever happen like that, where there'd be, like, consequences for being, like, rude and, like, offensive? Probably not, but, like, it's just, like, crazy.
Well, there are laws against hate speech, but I was really impressed with the level of laws that seem to be in existence in New Zealand. And I would think that at least the streaming followers had some connection to that guy that was from some anti-Muslim or right-wing or whatever his affiliations were, that would be easy enough for their intelligence community to figure out and do some prosecution.
Yeah, I think one of the things that it's important to distinguish between hate speech and hate crimes.
Yeah.
We definitely have laws about hate crimes, that is, actions that you take hatefully directed against a group. But we don't have very good laws about hate speech because, like you said, Olivia, we have this very strong First Amendment tradition. Obviously, New Zealand does not have a strong First Amendment tradition, which is why the prosecutions can go forward. To me, I'm intrigued at this idea that I think, Olivia, you said something like it's kind of normalized, or we see so much entertainment violence that when we see it, it doesn't immediately strike us as, it's not much different than you would see on an action adventure film. Really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what it brings to mind for me? High school audiences who laughed when they saw the live streaming of the planes going into the World Trade Center towers. Because it was just another movie where something's blowing up a building.
Hey, Anthony.
Can I
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Can I give like a real world example of this? So like I'm friends with this girl Bisma, and she's Muslim, and this is like something she like tweeted about this happening, and like that's how I like found out about it, and it went pretty viral. It got like 1,200 likes, so that's like kind of a big deal on Twitter. And I guess like, you know, after the Super Bowl, like there was like all the fires and riots on the URI campus. She tweeted, she said, "My professor saw this in the news and had the audacity to single me out in class to ask if I had set any fires in a class full of people who resemble those in the video more than I do. She pointed to me. Even worse, someone remarked, she doesn't set stuff on fire, she blows it up." Because she's like because she's a Muslim student. Isn't that horrible? And like, do you think that professor got reprimanded for it? No. And that's just like stuff that like happens on regularly in the US. And it's just like,
holy shit, my jaw is falling onto the floor, so I can hardly comment. Yeah, that is a shocking example. We're trying to make sense. Anthony, you joined us and we're right in the middle of a heated discussion. We're trying to figure out why people watched the mosque shooting video. You have any thoughts on this yourself? Why did so many people watch and share the mosque shooting terrorism video?
I just kind of think like that's a natural kind of reaction to something like that. Like you see something horrible and you're like, I don't want to be the only one that sees this. So you're going to share it to your friends. I don't know. Like, I guess that's just how like my friend group works. Like, dude, look at this. This is happening right now. Like you're there, you're physically there. Like it's streaming. This is live, or this was live. Like you're a part of history.
So you want your friend group to know what you know. You don't want to be the only one. Oh, that's an interesting explanation.
Like, I don't know if I would want to see it. Like, I wouldn't want to see it for myself. It sucks even hearing about it. Like, I don't want to see that firsthand.
I had a similar reaction, Jess. I watched it as it was like just the first 20 seconds was shown on CBS Evening News. That's what us old ladies watch, right? And I was angry. I was like, why are they putting that on the news? But it speaks to Anthony's point about people feel they want to share terrible bad news, and maybe that's part of the impulse, right? The sharing of terrible bad news is the way the tribe protects itself. Intriguing. Okay, so I don't know that we have answered that question, but that is a really interesting question to think about. Why the sharing of terrorist videos is so incredibly viral. Who's calling in on and joining us by phone, I wonder?
Hannah.
Hey, Hannah, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Pretty good. We just had a really interesting question on this topic, so we'll ask you to weigh in on this. We've just been talking about the mosque terrorism video and wondering why was it shared so widely? We understood it was shared widely all over the internet. What's your thought on that? Why was that video shared so widely?
I feel like anything that has to do with terrorism, especially after 9/11, is just it just makes the big news. Everyone is talking about it. So it's just kind of like a big topic. No one ever wants to talk about little things or even things of like positive news. It's always something, which is awful to say, but like something terrible.
So the more terrible it is, the more sharing that's going to happen.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. Okay. That could be it. I don't know. It's definitely a messy and complicated topic. Here's what I'm thinking about doing. I want to have a little discussion in 2 small groups. First, we're going to discuss these topics. Then we're going to watch some videos, and then we're going to discuss these topics again. Okay. Team 1. If you're on team 1, you're going to discuss this question. How are the victims of terrorism depicted in the media? So for you, if you're team 1, you're going to have to unpack 3 complicated words. What does the word victim mean in this context? What does the word terrorism mean in this context? And what does the word media mean? Right? So how are the victims of terrorism depicted in the media? That's our first question for team 1. Second question, is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? Why or why not? And for you, your challenge is to define content moderation, solution, and the spread of terrorism. Those are terms that you have to talk through before you can really answer this question. Give me a thumbs up if you know what we're going to be doing. Okay, so I'm going to assign you guys to 2 groups. Let me just do that right now. Hold on here, just a sec. Breakout room. Okay, so I'm going to assign you guys into 2 groups. I'm going to do it manually. That means Anthony and Jessica, you guys are team 1. And then Olivia, Pam, you are team 2. I'm just going to give you about 4 minutes to talk over this question, and the rooms are open now, so you can join.
I'm not seeing a place where we get an invitation to join the room.
You are not seeing a place to join the room. Oh, yes. Okay. Pam, there you go.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, hold on. I think I assigned you to the wrong room.
Right.
Sorry. Hold on. I'm going to reassign you. Move to breakout room 2. There you go. Now you guys should both see those, right?
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so if you're watching this, you're reflecting on those questions without benefit of the small group, but still they are pretty interesting questions indeed. How are the victims of terrorism depicted in the media? And is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? I'm just reflecting a little bit on the conversation we had about why people share the terrorism videos. And I guess I heard two themes kind of coming out from that conversation. People said people thought that the reason why they shared was because it was shocking, or because it was like TV that kind of looked like entertainment violence. And that all to me sounds like viewing around issues of sensation or the thrill factor. And then there was another set of ideas about, well, we share it with our friend group because it's happening now, or because our friends were going to want to know. And that, it seems like, has something to do with like status and the way in which being the first to share or being the first to know has always given people a certain, certain hierarchy, right, in a group. And so I am thinking a little bit about sensation and status as factors that might help us understand why the mosque video and other kinds of terrorism video were so share worthy. Okay, I think I'm going to invite these people to come back. Okay, wonderful. It looks like you guys are back. Okay, let's hear from Team One first. Team One, your question was, how are the victims of terrorism depicted in the media? What'd you guys end up discovering through your dialogue?
So we were just saying that like it really depends on like who is considered the victim and like who was the one that was terrorizing them, because and like what the issue was at hand too, and who's reporting it. So there's like a lot of different aspects that go into it.
Right. So that's very context specific, right? Who's the victim? Who's the perpetrator? What was the context? Those all are factors that might shape how victims are represented. Absolutely. We learned very early in the semester how context is absolutely everything. You can't make too many general okay, Team Two, you guys had this question: is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? Why or why not? What are your thoughts on that?
We discussed this, like we had a pretty good discussion on this. In my opinion, content moderation is a solution, but like in terms of the US, like it's not like, it shouldn't be like the most immediate solution.
Explain, why not?
I think in the US, like to stop the spread of violence and terrorism, the most immediate and like impactful solution would be to like limit gun laws, because like social media, like yeah, it plays a role, but like it can't physically kill someone like a gun can or a bomb can or like semi-automatic weapon can.
Good point.
So like yeah, like it can be helpful, but like I feel like there's other things that should like come first in the US.
I love that observation. That certainly is, I can hear you guys drilling down on the idea of solution, right? Because, you know, there are legal solutions and there are solutions related to media, there are political solutions, and certainly stricter gun laws or limiting people's access to weapons would be a different solution that might have bigger impact in our country where there are so many guns. Also, maybe a more challenging solution to actually implement. Okay.
And I wasn't quite in agreement with Olivia. I think media and content moderation can be a good thing. I think it can also be dangerous depending on who's doing it. But like I was very impressed with New Zealand's, the name of the shooter will remain nameless.
Yeah.
I thought that was so powerful that it totally took away that this is how I'm going to become famous, even if I die in the process.
Why did you like that as a solution, Pam?
Because I think it takes away that, you know, if one of the impetuses for doing a mass murder is to have your name live in infamy, it takes that away. You know, you have just cut down, which is, I guess, also why they wanted to go after the videos of him streaming, because that's a whole other way that he can have control over getting it out there.
Right.
Somehow. But that's definitely content moderation, and I was impressed with that.
Right. Cool. Okay, so I want to problematize these two questions by watching just excerpts from two interesting videos. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I wonder about your reaction to these two videos, because I think I struggled when I watched them, and I wondered about your thoughts. So first, we're going to watch a video that addresses this issue. And who's got their microphone on that's making a lot of noise here? Mute your mic if you're not talking. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so the first question that I'm intrigued about is, how are victims of terrorism depicted in this media? We're just going to watch a few minutes from this interesting video that I found on the BBC.
This was the first concert that I was going to on my own. we were excited. I was trying to delete loads of pictures on my phone so I had enough space for all videos that I was going to take. Spotlights went on in time with the music and the crowd just went crazy. It's just inspiring. Empowering. Everything was just really exciting. It was new. There was like music playing while we got up, and I was just making my way out onto the stairs, and then we heard like this. It was like a boom sound. Oh my god! What's going on? You could feel that sound wave hit you, and then just suddenly flash, like a bright flash. It like hit my face like little tiny like little bolts and nuts and stuff. I remember going up into the air and then hitting the floor, and that's when I saw like my finger was hanging off, like all my 3 fingers. Everything that you thought would never happen to you, that you see everywhere on the news, is actually happening. I felt that this is it. I'm young, I've just started my life, and now it's going to be taken away from me.
22 people have died and 59 are injured after a suicide bombing at the end of Ariana Grande's gig at Manchester Arena.
People see it as a news story, and people see it as something that happens and then it goes away. But you never go a day without thinking about it, do you? You never go an hour without thinking about it. How many times I've actually had to wake my mum up on a night because I've had a nightmare. And that's almost something what a kid would do. You know, go into the mum's room and say, I've had a nightmare. But it's not like a nightmare of being chased. It's actually what happened that night. I relive it. And I relive it if I was going to one of her concerts. I've had dreams about the same thing happening, but in a shopping centre. So I was just like resorting my room out for the 5th time that day until like 4 o'clock in the morning, because I just didn't want to sleep because I was too scared to go to sleep in case I had another nightmare. Silence is too frightening.
Okay, that's probably enough for now. So why don't we just talk a little bit about how are the victims of terrorism depicted in that video? What did you notice about that video?
It like wasn't very political at all. It was just like them talking about like what happened at the concert.
It wasn't very political at all. It was just them talking about what they experienced. Yeah, I noticed that. Thanks, Anthony. What else? What'd you notice about how are the victims of terrorism depicted in that particular piece of media?
They were depicted as pretty helpless.
Yep, that's a good point. What else did you notice? Oh, Pam, put your microphone back on.
They were still living the trauma of the terror, just like soldiers have PTSD.
Aha. So we saw that the pain, the suffering lasted longer than the physical injury. Yeah. How does this depiction of terrorism differ from other depictions of terrorism victims that we've seen in the media? Have you ever seen depictions of terrorist victims that's similar to this? Or not?
I feel like
One of you go.
Go.
I feel like
Ladies first, Olivia.
I feel like this one is different because I can't think of another terrorist attack where the demographic was specifically young girls. And I feel like young girls are the easiest to victimize versus like a grown man being a victim. Like, you know, like think about like the movie theater shooting. There wasn't like really a demographic that could be that easily categorized, you know?
Okay, you're on to something there, Anthony.
Just like when I think of like terror attacks, like I think of like the ones at home mostly. So like the Parkland shooting, the Parkland shooting. I think of like that's a bunch of kids, or even like Sandy Hook, where it's a bunch of kids, where that's really easy to be like, oh man, this is terrible, this is horrible, like we should change something, we should do something, without necessarily like implying it by just kind of stating facts. Whereas like, but later on, like even in Parkland, where they got more political right off the bat, those victims were later kind of politicized, you know?
Great observation in a way, by inviting us to compare the Manchester shooting, where all the victims were young, to Parkland and to Sandy Hook. You point out another really interesting difference. This video, as at least the segment that we saw, mentions nothing about the political context, whereas in both Sandy Hook and in Parkland, the political context around gun laws was the dominant frame for the crime. Do you
think that has something to do? Do you think that has something to do with like this shooting, the Manchester shooting not happening in the U.S. and like how our political systems play a role in like our media portrayal of horrific events?
I'd say that's an A+ answer if ever I heard one. It kind of addresses what you guys talked about context, right? That how the victims are depicted depends on the context. And maybe part of that is the legal context, because when there is a terrorism attack, the idea of going to the who was the person and what was wrong with them is the kind of immediate focus here. And we don't necessarily see so much about the victim's point of view.
Like, I feel like after 9/11, our political system, like, tried to make it seem like it was, like, outsiders. We should be afraid of outsiders, blah, 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 like, even now today. But, like, in reality, like, the majority of U.S., like, mass shootings have been done by not only American citizens, but white right-wing extremists who, like, are a dominant force in our country.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Pam and I were talking about the one of those readings that we read this week, the one that was on the what was it called, the base, right? Said that 25% of the major terrorism attacks committed by they call them lone wolves, right? Basically, white guys, extremists who get it into their head to commit the crazy act. I've been thinking a lot about the depiction of the victim and some of the patterns. I guess I've been trying to address my own feelings of compassion fatigue, right? As violent terrorist acts and murders like the mosque shooting have become more common, I'm not as outraged, I'm not as hurt, I'm not feeling as exhausted and as overwhelmed. And I kind of hate that feeling. I hate that I'm so desensitized to terrorist violence. And I feel like one of the things I want to think more about is, how are the stories of the victims depicted, right? And how do I awaken my own compassion in the context of this very desensitized reality that we're experiencing. And so that brings me to the second video that I want to talk about with you, which is addressing this question: is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? Why or why not? We'll just watch 3 minutes, and then I want to get your response. We'll start with team 2. You guys talked about this beforehand, and then we'll talk about it as a large group. This also comes from a very interesting, from the BBC 3, a British television network.
The world should know that we are here. We are doing our best to make this platform safe for all of them.
Hindi siya dapat i-disclose sa mamamayan kasi wala dapat makaalam na merong ganun nagtatrabaho. You are not allowed to commit one mistake. You could ruin more than one life. It could trigger war. It could trigger bullying. It could trigger killing. Delete. Ignore. When we started training, I didn't know what content moderator was. I had no idea, and that was the first time I heard about it. They explained to us what are we going to see, what are the tools that we're going to use. The most shocking thing that I saw is that a girl around 6 years of age sucking a dick. I went straight to my team leader and told him that I can't do this. But then he told me that I should do it because this is my job, and I signed the contract for it.
The world that we are living in right now, I believe it's not really healthy. We are just like policemen. I've seen hundreds of beheadings. Not even pictures, even the videos. A 2-minute video of the act of beheading. It's really challenging. Delete. Delete. Ignore.
Ano, 6 years na akong content moderator. Dami ko nang nakitang video, mga picture. Yung mga ibang video, syempre, tumatatak pa rin sa isipan mo yung kahit paano. Parang nagjo-joke-joke lang. Parang lang, kunwari-kunwarian lang. Parang nag-attempt pa lang siya na magpapakamatay siya. So, ibig sabihin, as long as hindi pa siya nagsusuicide, hindi namin pwedeng i-stop yung live niya. Siyempre, pag in-stop namin yung kami naman malalagot, namin yan. Ayun nga, yung nagpakamatay na nga siya. Huwag kang magpapa-apekto sa video. Siyempre, kahit pa paano, hindi natin masabi.
Whoa. Okay, so our discussion question is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? In light of seeing this video, what are your thoughts on that? Team 2, I'd love to hear from you first.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go, Pam? All right. I think that it can be used as a semi-preventive method, but when it comes down to it, like, you can't really stop an individual who, like, wants to do a specific something. Like, you can only do so much to, like, prevent someone who, like, wants to kill someone. Like, there's gonna be, like, evil individuals out there, like, no matter what.
Or themselves, or kill themselves. But
Yeah.
I think that just what we saw of the reaction of the moderators, and how, just like the victims in Manchester, the images stayed with them. Like, that's what they're trying to prevent. Like, just think about it. You saw that and then couldn't get it out of your mind. I'm now thinking about all those thousands of people who saw the killings in New Zealand. Like, are they reliving that? Are they seeing that? How are they feeling about that? I felt horrible for the moderators that they didn't have psychological support. But I still
there has
think
to be some kind of
important.
Yeah. There has to be some kind of computer system that can be built to, like, filter out that stuff, so it doesn't have to be like a physical human job.
How come?
You know?
Why do you think that's why would that be a good thing?
Because, like, a computer system isn't going to be so emotionally impacted by watching a violent video that they kill themselves. Like, by, like, making this a human job, we're just harming more people.
Yeah, but it would really, I think, be hard to program. I mean, you can program computers to do a lot these days, but there are some things that I think need the human element. Like, you know, think about the filters that, like, you don't have any sexual content, but it also then means that kids can't look up sex education information, or, you know, how not to get pregnant because the filter is on sex. You know, I mean, it's tough.
So is content moderation a solution to stop the spread of terrorism? Why or why not?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it's ideology. You know, is communism going to disappear after the collapse of the Soviet Union? It's an idea. Like, terrorism is the same thing. You can't just blow it up. It's an idea. They're always just going to keep making new stuff.
Aha! Well, there's a really great final exam question if you wanted a little hint, right? Which is, what is the relationship between terrorism and propaganda, right? What's the Venn diagram? How are they similar and how are they different? Because Anthony's got a point, right? Content moderation might not be able to do much at all. At the same time, I do feel like it's like content moderators are another victim, right? Another invisible victim. And I think a lot about the fact that most of that is outsourced to third world countries. I think a lot of that is outsourced to young people. It's like their first job or whatever. And I think a lot about the different reasons why people can be traumatized by violent media images. Now, Pam, you and we've been around the block a long time on this topic of violence.
Yeah.
So how does the topic of exposure to media violence fit in to this issue of terrorism and the issue of content moderator and our own desensitization?
Well, that's exactly, I mean, just hearing my classmates talk about, you know, their views about why the shooting, the mosque killing massacre was spread, I think that speaks to a certain level of desensitization to violence. And I would say that my generation would not feel that way at all. I mean, I don't think, because we didn't have that desensitization when we were young. So when it started happening, it was a shock to us. Yeah, and it, I don't know, that, you know, there's a part of me that is really scared about this. It's really disturbing because, you know, if we get desensitized to everything, what are our values and morals? And I don't think that just banning guns, I think people will always find a way to get guns. When Anthony talks about you can't stop communism because it's an idea, well, I want to tell you, Anthony, Google the McCarthy era, because our government tried everything they could to stop every single person in this country who identified or had a card for the Communist Party, which wasn't such an unusual thing in the 1920s and 30s, because a lot of people in this country thought it was a good idea to share the wealth instead of having all the wealth owned by 2% of the population and everybody else working for them. So, you know, yeah, it was an idea. It turned out to be not a great idea in practice, but I'm not so sure democracy is a great idea in practice either. I don't know. I'm off the topic, but I'm worried about the desensitization to violence.
I have a question. I don't know, because my mom's given me the same speech 1,000 times. She's like, "Oh, back in my day, I was desensitized. We worried about this stuff," and I'm just kind of like, well, if it disturbed you so much, why wasn't anything done? Because like my whole generation's just like, well, if you don't care, why should I care?
I'll tell you, I mean, I think I've spent a career trying to do something and having to beg, borrow, and steal for funding to do it, because I think what I've come to is I think our culture has an investment in violence. And that's a pretty far out statement, but that's where I am right now. I don't think we really want to get rid of it because it funds a lot of economy.
All right, so we want to hear your thoughts on this complicated issue about terrorism, your desensitization, the pleasures associated with violence, the victims, the known and unknown victims. What are your thoughts about this, Jess? Olivia?
I think that like a lot go, like the fact that like there's video games that depict so much violence and everything, like that also helps us being like desensitized to it too. Like I don't play video games, but that also, like, the majority of the population that like are the killers are like males who play the video games, who then think it's okay to have guns and kill people because they play these video games and they think, oh, like I'm just pulling like another trigger like it's in the video game.
We actually talked about that in class today, and like they've actually found it very hard to find like a correlation between shooters playing like violent video games and actually going out and committing the acts, because they were like, are violent people more inclined to consume violent media because they are violent, or is the media making them violent? And they've yet to like find a correlation between that, because like if you're just like, I want to kill people, and you're killing people in games, like you're inclined to like do that, whereas like me, like I can kill people all day and will crash my car because I don't want to hit a squirrel, you know?
Yeah, the chicken and egg question is a really interesting one. And the exploration of entertainment as a form of propaganda is exactly what we're going to be doing for our class next week. So let me, first of all, thank you for a great, messy, emotionally complicated discussion about, I think, a really challenging topic. There's no easy way around this topic, but I think you guys did a great job of opening up some of the complexity. I guess for me, the takeaway is really thinking about how victims are represented, thinking about what we mean by terrorism, thinking about content moderation in all its complexity, including the political economy of who does the work, right? And of course, the very first question we started with, which is why do people share examples of terror propaganda? I guess I also feel like when we watch Suffragette this week, which if you haven't watched it yet, you know, it's starting just tomorrow on HBO for free if you get HBO, is something
it's also at the library.
It's also at the library, and it's also at YouTube for $3.99. That film opens up some questions about when violence is justified, right, for political purposes, when political violence is justified. And that opens up yet another interesting set of questions about terror propaganda, which hopefully we're going to express next week when we explore our topic, entertainment propaganda. Our focus for next week is how is propaganda embedded in video games and Hollywood movies? And so I just kind of want to overview what the activities for next week are, because they're fun and they're different. I've given you 3 interesting choices. You choose one. One is a comic book, right? Very interesting comic book here. The Anti-Palestinian Propaganda You Don't Know You're Consuming by Yasmin Omar Atta. The other one, a very interesting essay, Documents Expose How Hollywood Promotes War on behalf of the Pentagon, CIA, and NSA, looking at how U.S. military intelligence agencies have influenced over 1,800 movies and TV shows. And then the third piece is called Gamifying Propaganda. This is a really interesting and a beautifully designed piece of journalism that is looking at mobile games for anti-drug propaganda in the Philippines, where Duterte, the dictator of the Philippines, has taken to creating an educational and entertaining game meant to teach children against the dangers of doing drugs. But what it's really doing, according to the article, is making you like the policemen who kill drug dealers without any due process. So, wow, hard to choose between those 3 really interesting pieces. But what I want you to do is select 5 powerful quotes from the article that you do read and compose a spark page where you use a combination of words and images to communicate key ideas from the readings and your response to them. Be sure to include your name plus an academic citation. Spark is a really easy tool that provides you with a template to create a web page, right? And you just press that blue button at the top. You choose the format you want. You make a choice of some key images and some key phrases, and you voila, hit publish, and you've got a Spark page. To make sure that I can see that page, I want you to tweet it with a link to our COM416 community, right? So that's a really cool activity, a create to learn activity. Then I want you to read one scholarly article. It can be Rethinking Military Gaming, America's Army and Its Critics, Let's Play a Video Game, Jihadi Propaganda and the World of Electronic Entertainment, or Propaganda for Kids, comparing IS-produced propaganda to depictions of propaganda in the Hunger Games and Harry Potter, right? So again, I want you to select a powerful quote from the reading and comment on it, and questions along the way. As you read, make note of questions that occur to you as you read, place them in this section, and you get bonus points if you comment or answer a question posed by a peer. So these are 3 interesting scholarly articles. Read one, choose one, select a powerful quote and comment on it, and ask some questions along the way. Now, this one, I'm really intrigued what you will do with it. Find an example of entertainment propaganda and post a description of it on the Padlet wall. So this is that open bulletin board. I've already put up the first one, American Sniper. Clint Eastwood's film glorifies American soldiers and demonizes Iraqis. Chris Kyle kills Iraqi women and children because they're trying to kill his buddies. He feels awful afterwards, but that just shows what a good guy he is. I found a movie review that even calls it a form of war propaganda, right? So you might think a lot about what does this term enter. After the reading, you will for sure have some really interesting ideas about what is entertainment propaganda, right? In all its complexity. Now, if you didn't watch Suffragette last week, you still have a chance because ironically, it fits for both topics, right? It fits for the topic on terrorism and it fits for the topic on entertainment propaganda. So that gives you a little bit of grace time. We'll have our regular class on Tuesday, April 16th. Keep in mind that you're steaming toward your final LEAP 3. I'm finishing grading your LEAP 2s now. I should have those in a few days for you. And we're steaming ahead on your Friday LEAP 3 project. That's where you'll be creating a listicle of the top 10 insights that you learned from the class and a Spark video where you highlight some ideas. So next week, we'll talk a little bit more about any questions that you have about your LEAP 3 project. And of course, our topic of entertainment violence is likely to elicit some great conversation. So I will look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. I guess that's April 16th. Thank you so much for joining me. Anthony, Olivia, Jess, Pam, you guys rock. Mwah. You already know you all get an A for class participation. And if you didn't participate live, check the question below, which will give you a way to redeem yourself in my eyes. All right. All right. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.